is the way to look at it. And so many of these teams, right, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've been up against it all year. The Toronto Maple Leafs have been up against it all year. This was the only way that they could get these types of deals done to get this quality of player at the trade deadline. They had to bring other people in. And like you said, in the case of the Detroit Red Wings, they're in a rebuild. They're looking for as many draft picks as they can possibly get. Steve Yzerman, his plan is to take the Red Wings and put that Tampa Bay Lightning blueprint on it. You look at the guys that have just won a Stanley Cup with Tampa. A lot of them were acquired when Steve Yzerman was the general manager there. He did it through drafting and developing. That's what he's going to do again. So for them, and even for San Jose, what do you have to lose? You stick your nose in there. You take a couple of $1,000 on a salary cap, and you get yourself a draft pick. You could turn into a good player.
Yeah, and talk about Steve Yzerman. A lot of those players that we're seeing now in Tampa played together in Syracuse of the American Hockey League. In the minors, they won together. And John Cooper was down in that system. So, yes, they did it that way. I think the Blue Jackets, just thinking about this quickly today and yesterday as these trades have been made, I think they're further along than that. I feel that some of the pieces we've seen the past few years and having some established veterans like Boone Jenner, I think they're further along.
All right, well, let's find out more as General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen is now set to address the media.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll start in a couple of minutes with Jarmo, give folks a couple more minutes to jump on. If you do have a question, I ask that you please raise your hand, and we will call on you. Thanks very much.
Well, there you see Jarmo has sat down, and he is he's waiting to get the go ahead here from the PR staff that the media is ready to go. And Jody was on his phone, and for anybody wondering, it appears that he is not doing a last-second deal for Michael Del Zotto or anything like that. Del Zotto's the other guy that was talked about, might be moved today, but apparently he will stay a Blue Jacket.
Yeah, and Michael Del Zotto, I was excited for Michael maybe to get another opportunity, but I look at that and I think he's going to get a great opportunity here. He's playing with Seth Jones. He had 5 shots the other night against Chicago. He's an offensive-minded guy that now that is off his mind, the trade deadline and where am I going to go and am I going to get a chance at another Stanley Cup, as he was an acquisition a couple years ago from Anaheim to the St. Louis Blues. But he's going to settle in here now. And the opposition that he's going to see, he's going to try to be the best he can. He's going to work hard for Torch. I think it's important for Torch to have a guy that understands what John Tortorella is trying to do with these young players towards the end of this season. So I don't mind it. I think it's a good spot for Del Zotto, a guy who's been a great example when it comes to signing a professional tryout agreement to start this season, earning a spot on the team, and through injuries and movement, he's now playing on a top pair, which is – I like that for him because he can now relax and play hockey. He did thank the media the other night after the press availability, which I thought, very classy from Michael Del Zotto. But those are the little things you can't teach, and he's learned. So good on him, and I like him in the locker room for the young kids right now.
And he's another guy that has alluded to the fact that he would be open to staying here when this contract is up, and who knows what the future holds. But he is a veteran defenseman. I think he's done a lot of good things here this year. There are obviously openings on the blue line. You have some younger guys. You've got Andrew Peak, who is going to get into the mix here at some point in time. But those veteran defensemen, they are a commodity. You like to have those guys around.
Yeah, I agree. And you got to have the right guys. And a guy that's learned from the head coach here, I think that's positive. It's positive in a lot of different factors that come into it. And Michael's a guy that's been there. So, I think it's important for a guy who's 23 years old to get kind of that rough treatment, but then can go to Michael, and Michael can just explain to him exactly what's happening.
All right, I think the press conference is ready now, so let's send it back to General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen.
Thanks, Todd. Good afternoon, Jarmo. Wanted to ask you first about the players that departed and how difficult it is for you. I know this is a business. I know you got a really good return for those guys. But how difficult is it to have traded the guys that have been here for so long, like Savard, like Foligno, but also Riley Nash?
Well, I always say it's the worst part of the job, trading players that you've gone through some great success with and some battles. And ups and downs that you have as a team. You get a personal attachment to those guys and their character, and you can't speak enough of the character of those three guys. So it is the worst part of the job, for sure. And there are other similar situations in my job, sending down guys when kind of crushing their dreams. This is another part of my job that I really don't like, but certainly a hard day yesterday that way.
On the flip side of that, it's really hard to acquire first-round draft picks. How delighted are you now to have 3, and what do you think of the return you've been able to get for those players?
I think the return was good. We're happy with it. I think it gives us an opportunity to reload, is what we call it, and it gives us plenty of different opportunities to do it too, or different options, if you want to call them that. We could. There's going to be some interesting decisions next summer or off season with the expansion draft and the flat salary cap, and there could be some opportunities to reload quicker with some of the assets that we have now, or if the best opportunity is to use them as picks, it'll be a very interesting draft where there could be some real opportunities even after the top 10, as when you usually view that as the opportunity to get impact players. Now there's been some limited exposure to a lot of players, and you could really find some gems even later in the draft, and now that we have 3 first-round picks, that could be a great opportunity.
I noticed you using the word reload rather than rebuild. How far a step back is this for your franchise, these moves, and what would you say to fans that are wondering what the next couple of years are going to look like in Columbus?
Well, we wouldn't call it a step back. Obviously, we've had a disappointing season, but with these moves, I think we can do the reload, and we can decide the pace of it with the moves we make in the off season, and we'll be better for it.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Brian Hedger. Go ahead, Hedge.
Hey, Jarmo, what was this trade deadline period like? I mean, obviously you were busy the first 3 days. Was it? I mean, was your phone ringing off the hook, or was it slower than normal?
No, it's very similar to any of the other years. We wanted to get ahead of it with these deals. We didn't want to leave some of these 3-way deals into the last second, because it took a little bit more time than just a regular trade that you send into the NHL. They're actually quite simple, but required the third party, so we wanted to make sure that we didn't have to scramble with those in the last minute. So that's why we did them well before the deadline. But other than that, we were at the office all day today, all day yesterday, and several phone calls and ideas and proposals, and wouldn't really say it was any different from the other years.
I'm assuming that you had at least some offers for like a Michael Del Zotto. He's been really good this year, obviously, 1-year contract kind of thing. Did you just ultimately decide, I mean, that it was just better and worth it to just keep him here, and why was that decision made?
Well, he's been one of the players that I think this year has exceeded our expectations, and that's a good thing. So he's been a great Blue Jacket this year, has expressed interest in staying here, and we appreciate everything he's done so far.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Clay Hall. Go ahead, Clay.
Hey, Jarmo, thanks for the time. It feels like the franchise has had a crossroads, maybe a major crossroads. I'm curious what the future looks like to you, and it begs the question, does that include John Tortorella? Have you had discussion with him as to where this might go?
Well, we'll make all those decisions in due time. We have about a month left to play here. Our playoffs hopes are pretty small right now, and that's a huge disappointment, obviously, for us. We've been in the playoffs 4 years in a row, but I think we have a bright future ahead of ourselves. We still have some of the key core pieces in place here, and we keep building, and now we have some great assets to do the reload that I've been talking about.
Where do you stand with Patrick? Is that another discussion down the road when the season is over in terms of trying to sign him?
Well, we have his rights for 2 years, so.
2 years.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Tom Galiti. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, Armin, you kind of just addressed this, but just looking ahead, are you optimistic this is kind of just a one-year blip for you guys and that the pieces that you've gotten here in that deadline is going to help you kind of jump back into this quickly and also for the future?
Yeah, we view this year as a disappointment, anomaly of some kind, and it's been a very challenging year altogether for all the individuals involved and our team, and we expect a big rebound next year.
Does it? Your players sound pretty disappointed about what's happened. Is that the expectations that are higher? Is that at least a kind of silver lining here that this is not something that this organization is used to anymore, that you're expecting to be in the playoffs every year? Absolutely.
And when we had the team that we felt that we had a chance to win the cup, we loaded for it, and a lot of people were shocked by it. Now we regained those assets, or those type of assets, back and more, and we'll be in the same mode again next year. If we have a team, and when we have a team to compete for the Stanley Cup, we'll be going for it again.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Jeff Svoboda. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Todd. Some of the questions I had were answered there, but I do want to ask some of the players and even Coach Tortorella here over the last couple of days have talked about the culture and trying to get that back on track, and just how things have kind of changed in the locker room with some of the new guys, the new faces this year. I mean, do you feel like that is something that can be maybe not fixed, but put back on the right path here quickly? Or how do you just feel about that kind of situation, hearing guys kind of say things like that as this year's gone on?
Well, I haven't heard anybody else talk about it except John Tortorella, and he's been excellent with our culture for the whole time that he's been here. He's done a great job at it, and that'll never be compromised in here. It's a big part of who we are and who we want to be, and those things will never be compromised. And we have great leadership still here in place. I know we lost Nikki, who's our captain and our leader, but we have some very capable leaders still left in our locker room who know what that culture is all about, and they'll be guarding it.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot over the years about core, and you've kind of mentioned it a little bit here, but do you still feel good about this core? I mean, some of the guys last couple of days, they've named off 6 or 7 guys they still feel are pretty good part of that core, and do you still like what you've got there as far as that goes?
Absolutely. Our goaltending is strong. We have one of the best deep pairings in the league in Seth Jones and Zach Wierenski. We have some really good young forwards. We got some experience mixed in there. We have some leaders and some very good prospects coming, so the future is going to be bright.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Whitney Harding. Go ahead, Whitney.
Thanks, Todd. Hi, Jarmo. Thanks for your time today. You mentioned there is still a rest of a season to play. This morning, Torts actually said that he's going to be working a lot with you about who plays and what that's going to look like. So what are you wanting to see from these guys the rest of the season besides wins, clearly?
Well, the winning culture, and we just talked about that'll never be compromised here, and it doesn't always translate in wins in the standings, but the way we go about our business every day, that should always stay on the same level. The pride we take in every practice and every game, and we're going to see some new faces here that are going to get an opportunity to show us what they have and be evaluated by us and the coaching staff. So we expect a very good effort, 100% effort, and lots of professional pride from our group the rest of the way.
And one more question about one of the guys that left. Nick Foligno will be a free agent after this year. Any consideration of bringing him back?
Well, that would be tampering if I talked about that right now.
Tried to sneak it in. Thanks.
Next, we'll go to Dave Metzold. Go ahead, Metzi.
Thanks, Todd. Jarmo, I know that, or at least it was reported that you and Nick would have conversations before any kind of move was made. Can you just give us an idea of what those conversations were like? We're not giving any secrets away, but the back and forth that ultimately involved in the move?
Yeah, it's an unusual situation. It's a delicate situation, trading your captain. So I wanted to be open about it with Nick and talk to him and keep him in the loop. And when he came to the final stretch, I told him what teams were involved and wanted to give him the respect to have some input there. And I told the teams that I would be doing that too. So it was all transparent that way, and we came to a conclusion. We got the best deal for our team, and a choice that Nick was very excited about.
Ultimately, Jarmo, was it a situation where you looked at Nick and said, okay, you all right with this? You signing off on this? Or was it not that simple? Was there more to it than that?
Well, as I said, we got his input, and we told him about the choices and the teams that were involved, and ultimately we got what we wanted, which was the best choice for the franchise, and something that he was very excited about.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Mark Scheig. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Todd. Yarmo, I'm just curious about what you've thought of this whole situation in Cleveland with COVID, and an important aspect of your team being the development of the young players, just how that's impacted and how that might impact the immediate future of this team.
As far as I know, we're in pretty good situation there right now, health-wise, and they have some challenges around the league, just like the NHL has had. But we've gotten some good games in. Last time we won 9-2 in Rochester and played great, and expect and hope that they can keep going and keep developing. It's important that they get a lot of games and don't lose any of that development time. And we've been fortunate to have Tyler Angle there, for example, this year, and when the OHL's not playing, and he's shown us that he can be a really good player already in the American League level, which is something that we probably didn't expect this year. And he would have been back in the OHL for his overage year, but because of COVID, he's played in Cleveland and has played great and earned a contract. There's a good example, and Josh Dunn got done earlier because of some of the COVID issues in college, and he's joined our team in Cleveland and played great and earned a call up to the taxi squad, and I think there's a very good chance that you'll see him on the NHL ice soon. So there's been some great development going on in Cleveland, and we have a really good coaching staff in place there, and they do a good job to get those guys ready to show us what they can do on the NHL ice.
Next, we'll go back to Aaron Portzline. Go ahead, Porty.
Thanks, Todd. Jarmo, what do 3 first-round draft picks mean this year? And I ask that just because you mentioned the OHL not playing the junior leagues, very few games in the junior leagues. How good a read do you think you have on this next wave of talent coming into professional hockey? And will you start to sort of change your role a little bit? I know you've been with the team much of the year. Are you going to head out now and start to get a look at this next wave of players coming in?
Well, OHL is still not playing. It's hard to get to Canada in general because you'd have to quarantine to watch games, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. We've been watching a ton of video. Our scouts have been watching a ton of video. We have 2 scouts in place in the Western League watching those games live now. We've had our head scout go everywhere he can go to cross over to the areas to evaluate players. The World Junior Under-18's coming, and we'll see the top OHL players there. There's been talk about some kind of a prospect game with the combine at some point this summer. So I'm sure we'll get a good read on those players, and we already have a read on the top guys as underage players. So I'm going to head to the World Junior for sure and see those players and help the best I can our scouting staff to evaluate the top guys, and it'll be important since we have the 3 firsts.
And while, as you just said, you don't necessarily have a good read on some of these guys yet, is your sense that this draft class is the same as others? I've heard people say it's not that strong. I don't know how you could possibly know that. Do you have a read on what the talent is at the top?
Well, it's interesting that people say it's a weak draft, and then they say, well, have you had a chance to evaluate it? That
Exactly.
kind of contradicts one statement from the other. But like I said, we have a read on the top guys as being underages already. So we've watched them the year before they got their draft eligibility. And other than the OHL, we were still watching games. And whether it's more on video, yeah, it is probably. But we have an area scout in Finland watching games live. We have area scout in Sweden watching games live. The most difficult job is probably for the head guy, Ville Siren, who has to cross over to each area, and it hasn't been easy with all the different quarantines and everything in place and the travel troubles and all that. But he's been in the U.S. He was just here to watch the top prospects game in Plymouth. and the U.S. top prospect game, that is. And he's been to USHL, and like I said, we have scouts watching Western League every game. And with video scouting, we'll watch every game they play. In normal years when you have a lot of live viewings, you might do some support work to make sure you have enough coverage and you watch some of those games on video. Now we're watching the top guys every game on video that we can get our hands on, and we can get our hands on every game. So it's different, it's challenging, but it's definitely doable, and I'm sure that the NHL will find a way for us to evaluate the OHL players too, and the World Junior Under 18 will be one of them, and hopefully there's a prospect game or prospect tournament in the summertime where some of the guys that are maybe late birth that can't get to the under 18s will be at, or some of the non-top guys but that are still very good prospects for the NHL draft will be there. So I'm sure that's something that not only the NHL wants for the teams, but also the players and their agents and the NHLPA wants for the prospects.
Thank you.
Next, go back to Brian Hedger. Go ahead, Hedge.
Hey, Jarmo, just sticking with draft topics there. You guys have done a good job of hitting on some later round picks. You mentioned Engel earlier, 7th round pick. Travis Wolansky before he got hurt, 7th round pick. How important was it for you guys to get those extra picks in the 2022 draft, 3rd and 4th, in those Foligno and Savard deals?
Yeah, they're very important. You look at our lineup, and now and in the past, we've had some really good players taken from those rounds. Oliver Bjorkstrand is still here; he was a 3rd round pick. We got a couple of prospects that are. Marchenko was picked in the 2nd, but Voronkov was later, and he just had 2 goals in a playoff game, and he's been really good in the KHL this year. So you can definitely find some good players later in the draft, and also use that as assets in the trades if you want to package something together so there's a lot of different ways to use those draft picks. They're valuable.
There's some people, and you read it, and you'll see that people say that picks like in the 4th or 5th or 6th round are lottery picks or whatever. How do you guys view them? I mean, I'm assuming you have a whole system and everything else that you're viewing for each round.
Well, we work on the list all year long, and there are sometimes the way it works is that you have a guy left very high on your list that you would have taken much higher than 5th, 6th round, but he's still available there, and you get him in the 6th, and you feel pretty good about it. So there's no lottery for us there. The scouts are serious about their business. They work at it all day long, every day, and travel thousands and thousands of miles to see those guys. So they take every pick seriously, and that's why we've had some success in the 7th round as well.
Last one I have today is just how disappointing has it been to see Patrik Laine kind of struggle the way he has here, and what do you think needs to happen to get him going?
I think it'll be a great experience for him to go through something like this. Adversity builds character. I always say that, and he's been frustrated, and he had some success last game. Hopefully, got a monkey off his back, but he's been working hard. He's been trying hard. He wants to be good. He wants to get better, and this will be a great learning experience for him, and he'll be better for it.
Last couple for Jarmo. We'll go to Mark Scheid. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Todd. Jarmo, just are you changing the approach on when to get Gus Nyquist back? I know he's working back from his shoulder, and from past experience, that could be a tricky injury. But do you want to try to get him into a few games this year, or possibly wait and have him be fully healthy for the following season?
We'll see. It's interesting. Nobody's really talked about him. He was our 2nd leading scorer last year, and we really missed him because we can use him in every situation, and we could have definitely used him this year. And it's an injury that usually requires 6 months of recovery, and I think it's May 3rd, 6 months, and the last game of the regular season is not much after that, so I'm not so sure that it makes any sense to test his shoulder just days after he would be cleared, or rather just keep strengthening it and get ready for next season.
And next we'll go to Mitch Stacy. Go ahead, Mitch.
Okay, hello, Jarmo. You were one of the few GMs to secure first-round draft picks. How do you see the salary cap crunch, affecting all the activity at the trade deadline this year?
Oh, you just have to look at the trades we made. They weren't possible if we retained money, and they found another team to retain half of the half that we retained. So there you go. It's been challenging, and they had to do those three-way trades to be able to fit them under their cap, and it's going to be it was a challenge at the deadline, and it'll continue to be a challenge next off season too, because the way the business side works, obviously, some guys have the arbitration rights, and that pretty much determines on where their salaries are going to go, and sometimes there's no way around it, and with the success of the players, the salaries keep growing. We signed Oliver Bjorkstrand to an extension this year just for that reason. We knew that with his numbers, if we had to go to an arbitration, or he decided to go to the arbitration, we'd have to pay him the amount of money that we paid him, basically, and we wanted cost certainty and sign him to a long-term contract. And a lot of teams are in the similar situations with maybe several players, and there's only so much you can fit under the cap, and that'll be a challenge for many teams. So that could provide us some opportunities as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jarmo.
So there is Jarmo Kekalainen talking about the trades that he made, and the three guys that he sent out: Riley Nash, David Savard, Nick Foligno. You heard him say Michael Del Zotto is staying. He is here, and he didn't get moved today. But again, Jody, he pretty much reaffirmed everything we talked about. The moves that he made, felt that those were the ones he had to make, and he's very happy with the return that he got.
Yeah, that's good. He's a guy that values those picks. He's a guy that understands the situation. That's his job. And also, it's a reload, not a rebuild. I thought that was very interesting, because when you look at the way the team's been playing on the ice, it's not the same team. So to reload the pieces, obviously he's confident he can go get some NHL players now to help this reload. And, the Gus Nyquist question was a great one, because that's exactly the point that you're missing, is that this is a valuable, not NHL player, a veteran established player who puts up points and complements some of the things they try to do here. Fit in very quickly. He has not been in the lineup. So those are good things to remember. The talk of the prospects and the guys developing in Cleveland, you're going to hear a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of that moving forward. But the reality is, are they ready to come in and play Blue Jacket hockey? And I'm wondering what Blue Jacket hockey looks like moving forward. And, we'll see how this season ends. But it's got to be a real assessment. Maybe it's a different brand of hockey. We don't know. But there's a lot up in the air. But I love the fact that he's using the term reload, because that means he's got a plan to make it short term.
Right, and when you talk about Gus Nyquist, and you're right, I'm glad that came up, because he is easily forgettable. And I'm not saying that as a knock on Gus. He just hasn't been here all year long. This is like putting a top six. Well, it is. It's not like it. It is. You're putting a top six forward right back in your lineup. It's just like making a trade. You know that's a guy, boom, that's going to go right back in there next year, and he's going to produce.
Yeah, but I also look at the acquisitions that they've made, and Max Domi and Patrick Laine, and it just – they haven't added. You know what I mean? We thought they would add right away, but the adding hasn't been there right away. So how long do you wait to get these guys in the lineup to be playing the way you want them to play? I see frustration from Cam Atkinson. Well, it's because there's been predictability with Dubois the past few years. He's not here anymore. So now that's behind everybody's. It's behind the Blue Jackets. The trade deadline is passed. But what do you add to fill in because what does the picture look like for Cam Atkinson, Boone Jenner, Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, and the Columbus Blue Jackets?
All right, the Blue Jackets do take on the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. The Blackhawks, Matthias Janmark didn't play the other day. They end up moving him today. The Blackhawks were already a team that was, had a lot of young guys coming into this season looking for experience, and that's exactly what they've gotten.
Yeah, and this is a team that still thinks they're chasing it. They have Patrick Kane. They've got some players that they can build around. So Janmark was an asset. I mean, this guy was so reliable in Dallas. He leaves there because the salary cap world, and he ends up coming to Chicago and just a reliable player. So yeah, he moves along, and Chicago's a team now that if you look at the way they've done it, building around one of the best players in the world, of course, but that's not always easy either. But to bring in some skill into Brinkett, to build some of the pieces, to bring in a Connor Murphy and put him up on a long-term contract, they have a nice contrast there, but they've got a nice combination of skill and work. So Colton's done a good job. The Blue Jackets are, they're going to have their hands full again tonight, but the Blue Jackets now are playing pressure-free hockey, which is always fun to play.
All right, that game gets underway at 7 o'clock tonight. Pregame coverage starts at 6:30, both on Bally Sports Ohio, where you'll find Jody, and on the Blue Jackets Radio Network, where I will be tonight. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Trade deadline day coming to a close. Riley Nash, David Savard, Nick Foligno all moved out from the Blue Jackets for draft picks that are coming up either this offseason or next offseason, and their assets, and we'll see what Jarmo Kekalainen does with each and every one of them. For Jody Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott. Thanks for watching, and so long.